Right, enough is enough. I've had enough of this bullshit. Time to do a rant. Now, you're probably wondering what I'm going to rant about. I'm going to rant about a Warcraft character. So, there's going to be spoilers, and this is going to be off the cuff because I really have to get this off my chest right now. The person I'm going to be ranting about today is a character called Sylvanas Windrunner. Now, before you even ask about who Sylvanas Windrunner is, I'm just going to tell you that she is the worst video game character I have ever seen in a video game. Period. And I'm about to explain why she is the worst video game character of all time. Now, Sylvanas first appears in Warcraft 3, in the mission where Arthas goes to attack Quel'Thalas to get to the Sunwell so he can bring back Kel'Thuzad. So, basically, she just comes in, and Arthas is basically charging into Quel'Thalas, and she basically intercepts Arthas' attack, and she does so in the most vain, egotistical way possible. She's baiting him. She is literally beckoning him to fight against her. She's pretty much a bitch. That's what she is. And she's basically like, oh yeah, I'm so awesome, like you have no chance against me. To this guy who has murdered countless people in Lordaeron, killed his father, and he basically has an army of undead that's about to kill all these people in Quel'Thalas. Yeah, I don't think you should be so smug when you're trying to fight against someone who is clearly capable of eliminating your entire race. But regardless, Arthas just brushes that off and continues his attack. And Sylvanas keeps coming back. Now, if you've played Warcraft 3 and you've played this mission, I will guarantee you right now that you will, like, if you've never played any other Warcraft game, you just start with Warcraft 3 and you play this mission, I will guarantee you right now that you will be annoyed by this character. This character will annoy you. Sylvanas' purpose in this campaign, in this mission, or at least in the 3 missions that she's in at this point, is to annoy the player. Every time you think you're going to win against the High Elves, Sylvanas comes in and starts attacking your main base, causing you to have to, like, move back to fight against Sylvanas to, like, basically push her back so you can continue your attack. So basically she's just there to annoy you. That's what she's there to do. And eventually Arthas, he succeeds over time, and Sylvanas is like, oh, you know, you passed the first gate, but I'll get you next time. And then she's like, runs across this bridge, and then Arthas is like, you can't outrun me. Like, no matter what you do, eventually you're going to die. I can destroy your entire race no matter what you do. You're fucked. Just accept defeat. I mean, obviously, you're playing as the villain here, who is Arthas. He is a pure evil, unlikable bastard. But even he is more likable than Sylvanas. And this is the reason why I presume that Sylvanas was inserted into Warcraft 3. They wanted to make a character that was so unlikable that playing as the villain felt okay. It was to make you comfortable in the role of a freaking psychopath who murders people, to give you a reason to want to kill the good guys. And in order to do so, they placed the most unlikable character, the most arrogant, most egotistical character you could possibly ever think of, who is the most annoying, most obnoxious fucking elf to ever exist in the universe. And that's Sylvanas. So, eventually, like, she's like, oh, you think I'm running from you? And then she's like, oh, you don't know anything about fighting elves. You just ignorant. And then she just shoots 2 arrows, and then the bridge, like, that she just crossed just falls into the river and collapses. So Arthas is like, oh, we have to find another way around. So basically the mission is you have to go get a Zeppelin and fly across the river, and then, like, you have to basically get all the 3 keys and then open the gate. And then she's furious at Arthas over this. And Arthas then begins to siege Silvermoon, which is the elven capital. And when he does, Sylvanas comes back again, and Arthas is pissed at this point. He's like, you know what, I've had enough of this bitch. So he beats the fucking shit out of Sylvanas, and Sylvanas is like, oh, like, finish me now, you know, I deserve a clean death. It's like, you deserve a clean death? Really? Like, you of all people, the most arrogant, most unlikable bitch deserves a clean death. I think not. And Arthas agrees. He turns her into a banshee, into an undead banshee. And quite frankly, I think that was the biggest mistake Arthas ever made. He should have just killed her and left her to rot. But no, he brought her back from the dead. He made her suffer torment. And in a way, I'm kind of glad he did. But in a way, I kind of like regret that he did, considering the fact that she continues to exist. And yeah, he basically turns her into a banshee, and then she becomes a unit in Warcraft 3, which you can use against all the enemies in Silvermoon. And yeah, you don't see Sylvanas until Frozen Throne. And when she reappears in Frozen Throne, it's in the first mission of Legacy of the Damned, where the Dreadlords are basically, they're occupying Lordaeron right now. Balnazar, Deathrock, and Varmathras basically have control over the Scourge, and Arthas has just returned from Kalimdor, which must have been a long trip, so it must have been a while since he was last in the region. But yeah, he went to Kalimdor originally so that he could stop Tichondrius because of what Tichondrius did, and he got Illidan to do that. But now he's back, he's come to retake his land from the Dreadlords and become king again. But not before, like, murdering every single human in the entire area. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to commit mass genocide. So he does. And Sylvanas helps him do that. Eventually, though, he starts to become weakened during this genocidal rampage. And the Lich King tells him to come to Northrend and help him because Illidan's trying to basically sink the Frozen Throne, or destroy the Frozen Throne, because Kil'jaeden ordered him to. And basically, Arthas has to get back to Northrend, and he's growing weaker because now there's kind of like, let's put it this way, his power is like draining. He basically had a big burst of power at the start, but now it's beginning to wane. And this could be because of the possible damage that Illidan did using the Eye of Sargeras, which could have weakened the Lich King, but we don't really know for certain. They never really explain why his powers are getting drained, but they are draining, and this is a problem for Arthas, and he has to basically escape from Lordaeron. So yeah, basically Arthas goes to his kingdom, and the Dreadlords ambush him, and they usurp him right on the spot. It's one of my favourite scenes in the game, and this causes Arthas to have to escape. And the moment that he does, Sylvanas Windrunner turns out to have been working with the Dreadlords, although the Dreadlords kind of invited her to work with them. She didn't really care to work with them because she's just too damn cool to work with the Dreadlords, apparently. And yeah, she shoots Arthas with a poison arrow, and right after that, Kel'Thuzad saves his ass and attacks all of her minions, so she runs away like a pussy. And Kel'Thuzad stays to like watch over Lordaeron, which puts the Dreadlords on edge, and because of this, the Dreadlords kind of need a figurehead to keep Kel'Thuzad occupied while they scheme shit. So they think, how about Sylvanas? So Varmathras goes to invite Sylvanas to the Dreadlords, and Sylvanas is like, oh, I'm not joining you, you're not cool like I am. And then eventually he decides to bait her into joining by attacking her, and this works because her ego is the size of a blimp. So she just immediately thinks, oh, you want to play that game? I'm going to show you who's the real tough person here. And she basically just, like, she uses, like, her banshees to possess ogres to charge against Varmathras' army, and Varmathras loses. But Varmathras, right afterwards, and I find this really interesting, he tells her to spare his life. No other Dreadlord has ever asked anyone to spare their life before. They've just accepted death. Even Tichondrius accepted death. These people, these demons fear nothing. They don't fear anything. But somehow Varmathras fears her, apparently. But the thing that I believe is that Varmathras is acting here. He's not afraid of Sylvanas. He's just taking an opportunity here to use Sylvanas to get shut of his brothers so that he can take all the credit for pretty much everything that goes on in Lordaeron. And he thinks that with Sylvanas' help he can do that and potentially frame her for the death of his brothers. And then he can just betray her later on. And in fact, in World of Warcraft, he actually does that. Now, I want to point out a few things before I get to World of Warcraft. I want to point out the fact that Sylvanas has abandoned chasing after Arthas and decides to stay in Lordaeron. Now, this goes against her character. I mean, I kind of get it, because Varmathras is trying to convince her to become the Queen of Lordaeron, or the Queen of the Forsaken, whatever you want to call it. And Sylvanas, she's all for it the moment that he says it. Now, you would think that Sylvanas would want to chase Arthas all the way to Northrend like Maiev does with Illidan, but she doesn't. She just stays there. And I always found that odd. I always found that really weird that she decides to stay in Lordaeron and not chase after Arthas, considering the fact that Arthas is the entire hunting down Arthas is the entire purpose of her character arc. Like, her character arc is to get revenge on Arthas, the one who murdered her and her people, who were High Elves, who were, I must remind you, were part of the Alliance. Now, speaking of being part of the Alliance, Sylvanas temporarily allies with Garithos, who, yes, he kind of hates the elves, but he is a part of the Alliance. Now, afterwards, Sylvanas orders Varmathras to kill Balnazzar. Now, Balnazzar doesn't die, because it turns out that he survives in World of Warcraft, and he does some pretty cool shit in Ashbringer. But, right after Varmathras fakes Balnazzar's death, which is in WoW lore, she then orders him to murder Garithos. Now, this is a massive change in her character, and really goes to show that she never was fighting for the Alliance at all. She was fighting for herself, and only herself. She only cares about herself. That's Sylvanas. And this is why I don't feel sorry for her when she was killed by Arthas, because she is pure evil. She is pure evil. That's one thing that you learn about Sylvanas at this very point. Yes, Garithos is an elf hater, but Sylvanas didn't know this. He never said anything prejudiced towards Sylvanas, although I suppose he called them wretched animals, but you'd think that by now that you'd expect that, considering the fact that you've been an undead for so long. And if she wasn't such an egotistical bitch, she'd probably try and reason with him, kind of like how the Knights of the Ebonblade try and reason with Thrall or Varian in World of Warcraft. But no, she just decides to set him on fire. Well, actually she doesn't do it, Varmathras does it, and he does it with pleasure because he is evil. He's a freaking dreadlord, of course. He takes pleasure in the suffering of others, so he decides to perform a Rain of Fire spell to kill Garithos. And then she orders the ghouls to cannibalize him, and yeah. Anyways, right after that, World of Warcraft happens. So, now that we've got over the whole, bullshit of her, staying in Lordaeron and not chasing down Arthas, which is completely out of character, now she is the Queen of the Forsaken. She is the monarch of a nation. Now, if you're a monarch of a nation, I'm gonna, use Mount and Blade, for example, because I just think this is the biggest irony. If you, in Mount and Blade, decide to become a monarch of a nation, I know this isn't real life, but I'm just going to use Mount and Blade as an example because I just found this funny. If you become a monarch in Mount and Blade and you declare yourself king of a nation, every single other faction in the game will declare war on you and, yeah, screw you over and bring things back to normal. And I found that amusing because the moment she becomes queen and declares herself queen, she is undead, for starters. So clearly, she's not going to be well liked by the humans. But somehow, in World of Warcraft, she manages to become allies with the Orcish Horde. Now, I want to talk about Warcraft 2 for a bit and what happens in Warcraft 2. In Warcraft 2, now, before that, actually I'm going to talk before that, the Orcs experimented with dark magic, and it's because of this dark magic that their homeworld was destroyed. And this dark magic was responsible for, undead and stuff like that. So they have Death Knights and everything, and yeah. In Warcraft 2, like, Organ Doomhammer murders everyone in the Shadow Council except Gul'dan, but Gul'dan convinces him to utilize the undead because it will make the Horde stronger. Organ does this and almost takes over all of Lordaeron, but Gul'dan betrays him at the last minute. And even though Terran Gorfin does stay to fight, the fact that he trusted someone who was involved in the dark arts, or was related to the dark arts, kind of screwed him and the Horde. And it was the dark magics that essentially caused them to be in internment camps, and caused pretty much all the problems the Orcs ever had. Now somehow, Sylvanas manages to convince the Orcs to become allies with the Forsaken. I have no idea how they managed to do this, but apparently they retconned it so that she is in the Horde. And to justify this, they basically added some lore to the storyline where apparently the Tauren, of all people, who worship the Earth Mother, or should I say one of the Tauren that was working with the Twilight's Hammer at the time, which is kind of funny because the Twilight's Hammer are revealed to be traitors in Cataclysm, and nobody bats an eye at Sylvanas, who was recommended to the Horde by someone who was a Twilight's Hammer member. And that Twilight's Hammer member convinces Thrall to bring the Forsaken into the Horde, and I think it's a woman, I don't know, I've forgotten, but basically he's convinced that the Forsaken can be saved and that they should bring them in so that they can see if they can save them and bring them back to life. They never do, obviously, and Sylvanas obviously agrees because she's got such a flimsy army. I mean, yeah, sure, she has Varamathras on her side, but even Varamathras, he's an agent, but he's not really a monarch, even though technically he kind of was for like a short period of time, but he's just basically an agent of the Legion. Like, yes, he's really good at like interfering with wars and just basically just causing chaos. He's basically a cunning tactician, strategist, he's that sort of person. He's not really a leader, and he's not really the most powerful entity on Azeroth in terms of brute strength. He doesn't really rely on brute strength. He relies on strategy and cunning to win battles. So on his own, he can't really do much to protect the Forsaken, and neither can Sylvanas, considering the fact that she was once just a mortal ranger general, so which is funny because she was a ranger general, not a monarch. She might be a leader of men, but she's not really a leader of people. She's not really a politician. Varamathras is a politician, so that's why they kind of worked well together, and why back in World of Warcraft you could kind of overlook the fact that Sylvanas was the leader, because she had Varamathras with her, and Varamathras being a political mastermind, I suppose, kind of sort of justifies it, but it kind of doesn't, because why would she be with the Horde anyways? But it would probably make her sort of survive in the Plaguelands, I guess, at least for some time, because Varamathras could get up to mischief and basically manage to keep her kingdom intact with his political skills and stuff that would maybe he could manipulate one of the humans into not fighting, or creating some sort of tension between the humans and the Scourge by maybe framing the Scourge. That's the sort of thing Varamathras does. So he may have been able to keep the Forsaken together for a while, but clearly Varamathras wasn't intending on keeping Sylvanas as the leader of the Forsaken for long. He wanted to usurp Sylvanas. And in Wrath of the Lich King, he does. He does just that. And he basically summons all these demons and takes over all of Sylvanas' forces. Pretty much all of them get taken over by Varamathras. And he also organizes the Wrathgate and frames Sylvanas for the whole Wrathgate scenario, where he attacks the Lich King, the Alliance, and the Horde at the same time with this plague, which is launched by trebuchets. I think that's how you pronounce it. And yeah, it causes the Lich King to run. Basically now he's taken over Lordaeron. And you'll never guess what happens next. Sylvanas cries a poor tale to Thrall, which causes Thrall to go to Lordaeron with his entire Corcoran army to help Sylvanas retake her capital. Now, wait a minute. What did Sylvanas ever do for the Horde to make her worth saving? Why is she worth Thrall going to save her? Like, why should Thrall save her kingdom and give her kingdom back to her when she's proven to be an incompetent leader by losing that kingdom? Why would he go to Lordaeron to get it back? Heck, why would he be even consorting with Sylvanas when he's a freaking shaman who believes in the elements, and the elements would see Sylvanas as a desecration against nature because she's undead? Have you even considered that, Blizzard? Anyways, and that's before we even talk about the Tauren who worship the Earth Mother, and they really are nature lovers. But in any case, they go to Undercity, but not only the Horde, the Alliance as well, because Jaina convinces Varian Rin to go as well. So Varian goes to Lordaeron. And lo and behold, Thrall and Sylvanas team up with one of the players in the game, because the player gets involved with it as well, against Varmathras, and they win. And the entire Alliance and Horde army that was basically not stationed in Northrend are there, and like, right after that fight, Varian's like, right, we're going to take over Lordaeron, and then it's like, the Horde are like, I don't think you are, like, we've taken it. And yeah, eventually the Alliance end up failing to take back Lordaeron. So basically the Alliance came to help the enemy retake their capital. How does that make sense? They're against the Horde. They're enemies with the Horde, and yet they're helping the Horde. And when they try to take it back, they're completely powerless against the Horde. So they end up running away. It's really stupid writing. And the fact that news from the Wrathgate spread so quickly, like, it's just ridiculous. The whole thing is just really stupid. And if the news did spread quickly, why would Thrall trust Sylvanas immediately? Surely he would be like, hang on a minute, your Forsaken killed some of my men, why should I trust you? It's just fucking horseshit. But that's only the beginning. After the Lich King, when Arthas is killed, you'd think that Sylvanas would be like, oh, you know, like, mission accomplished, my killer is dead now. And she jumps off from Icecrown Citadel and somehow survives because I think apparently the Valkyr bring her back to life. Now, come on. If you really wanted to die that badly, Sylvanas, what you would do is you would go to Light's Hope Chapel, you go to a priest, and you tell them to cast holy magic on you. This would eliminate you. This would kill you, pretty much, because the holy magic would essentially purify you, thus killing you. And it would be a painless death. You wouldn't jump off the tallest building in Northrend. Well, I think it's the tallest building. I don't know. I think Ulduar might actually be taller. But that's WoW lore stuff again, because they tried to add Norse mythology to Warcraft, which is kind of ridiculous. But okay. It's Valkyrie profile now. Okay. But anyways, like, she survives, and in Cataclysm, which is the next expansion, I don't think there's much to say about Sylvanas, but in Mists of Pandaria, there's a scene where Sylvanas reveals to, like, she calls Garrosh, who's the current War Chief of the Horde, and he's a bit of an idiot, but I will give him one thing. This scene is the best scene in the entirety of Mists of Pandaria, because Garrosh comes by her request, and she basically tells Garrosh that she's found a way to reanimate the corpses of humans and add them to her army so that she could basically, like, so that her army wouldn't be diminished, so that she can keep fighting for the Horde. And he's just disgusted by this. He's like, what you're doing goes against the laws of nature, Sylvanas. Now, this is Garrosh saying this, and Garrosh is a warrior. Like, he is the last person who should be telling Sylvanas this. Thrall should be the person telling Sylvanas that what she's doing is a desecration against nature. In fact, Thrall should be telling Sylvanas that she herself is a desecration against nature and should give herself up to the paladins or the priests, you know? The silly thing is that the Blood Elves are now part of the Horde in World of Warcraft, and they have priests. Just send Sylvanas to the Blood Elf priests and have them purify her. I mean, she was once a High Elf, and High Elves became the Blood Elves, so those are her people. Wouldn't you want to be killed by your own people and released from your torment? Well, obviously not, because Sylvanas is just too cool to be killed off, which is proven by pretty much her legacy in World of Warcraft. And basically, she tries to justify all this, but before she can properly justify it, Garrosh tells her to watch her clever mouth, and then he calls her a bitch. Like, he basically says the line, "Watch your clever mouth, bitch," and she shuts up. She doesn't say another word after that. That is the best line that was ever said in the entirety of Mr. Pandaria. I don't care, that is a fact. It's not up for discussion. I'm sorry, but it's not, because she deserved that line the most. She is an absolute bitch, and Garrosh, of all people, called her out on it. That's the one thing that I actually respect about Garrosh. I might not like him as a character, I might think he's an idiot, but that's the one thing, the one saving grace to Garrosh's character. The fact that he said that line. And right after, she was killed in the battle against Gilneas, and then she was brought back to life by the Valkyr. So basically, she's invincible now, somehow. Now, in Legion, Vol'jin gets killed and places Sylvanas in charge of the Horde. Hang on a minute, wait. Sylvanas, the leader of the Forsaken, the leader of Undead, who's clearly all for experimenting with dark magics, which is proven by the scene that they showed with her and Garrosh where she reanimated the dead, which essentially means that she's no different from Gul'dan, who also reanimated orcs as Death Knights. And Gul'dan betrayed the Horde years ago, and somehow she's now put into the position of War Chief. Really? She is the fucking leader of the entire Horde. She started as just a member of the Horde, but now she's in charge of the entire Horde. How does that make sense? Why would anyone make someone who clearly has zero loyalty to the Horde, has done nothing for the Horde, nothing really meaningful for the Horde, and make her the leader of the Horde, someone who's dangerous, someone who's experimented with dark magic, with necromancy, is now not only a member of the Horde, but the leader of the Horde. And that's before the whole freaking, Kil'jaeden and Sargeras death. And then we get Battle for Azeroth, which is, in my opinion, the worst game of, well, it's an expansion, but I'm gonna, the worst expansion ever created. Okay, there we go. The worst expansion ever created to a game. I've never played it, but I've seen scenes in it, and those scenes confirm everything I need to know about the game. They confirm that Sylvanas is a Mary Sue, and I'm going to explain why she is. So, the first thing that she does in Battle for Azeroth is burn down Teldrassil. Now, why she does this, I have no idea, but she kills countless Night Elves in the process. Now, before you start thinking, well, Night Elves are the enemy, I want to remind you about the events that happened at the end of Warcraft 3, where the Orcs, Night Elves, and humans banded together to defeat the Burning Legion, who were a common foe at the time. Now, obviously, conflict is going to happen between them, but are you really going to burn down their entire freaking, their tree and which they live on, their home, and just kill countless Night Elves in cold blood, knowing the fact that they were responsible for saving the world that you walk on today? Really? I mean, how unlikable can you possibly get? Oh, that's not even the beginning of how unlikable she is. The next thing she does is arrest Bane and attempts to execute him. I mean, yeah, he's rescued by Swordfang, but the fact that she actually arrests a fellow chieftain of the Horde, who is the leader of the freaking Tauren, who is part of the Horde, someone who is a fellow Horde member who, says one thing out of line, and now he's a traitor, so she orders his execution. And then she sends assassins to murder Swordfang and possibly Thrall, because he was there at the same time. And I think it was in Outland or something, I forget, but she sends assassins all the way there just to kill Swordfang because he was a traitor, and apparently maybe Thrall as well, because he just happened to be there. But yeah, Sofang essentially convinces Thrall to team up against Sylvanas, which is the smartest thing anyone has ever done in Battle for Azeroth. And he even teams up with the Alliance to do it. Now, finally, and this is where the core of this rant begins. This is where the core of everything I hate about Sylvanas begins. Because only recently, yesterday, a video on YouTube was released. And it's called the War Campaign Finale. In this cutscene, Sofang challenges Sylvanas Windrunner to a mock Gorah. Now, if you don't know what a mock Gorah is, it's basically a one-on-one duel that is close quarters combat. I mean, yeah, basically, like, you're kind of like in a ring surrounded by other members of the Horde, so you're kind of like close together. You can't like fight long range or anything like that. And it's just basically a straight up 1v1 fight. And really, it's all about whoever is the strongest wins. And it was used to decide like who was in power and like deal with quarrels in the Horde. Like, if you want to know more about Mock Gorah, I recommend watching the Warcraft movie where you see it between Juratan and Gul'dan, and Gul'dan cheats. He uses this magic spell against Juratan and murders him, and immediately right afterwards Orgrim says that he's a demon and that no one should follow him, and they all basically start shitting on Gul'dan, which is pretty funny. But a Mock Gorah happens between Sofang, who is, may I remind you, a trained warrior who was in the Blackrock clan, which the Blackrock clan was arguably had the most trained warriors out of all of the Horde. Like, they were led by Blackhand, and Blackhand was a very powerful warrior at the time. He was feared by all of the Horde. And the people under Blackhand are some of the greatest warriors in the Orcish race. Like, you had Orgrim Doomhammer, who became the leader of the Horde and nearly won the Second War, and only lost because Gul'dan betrayed him. You have Eitrig, who was basically... he was found by Tyrion Fordring at this tower, and he dueled with him, and then Tyrion Fordring grew to respect him because he realised that Eitrig shared similar moral values and had honour, and yeah, Tyrion was kind of like ostracised for that. But, you know, there's others, and Sofang is one of them. And these are mighty warriors. These are proud veteran warriors that have experienced countless warfare back in the First and possibly Second War. And even though Sofang never really played a part in like the Warcraft games, and he is pretty much a WoW character, he was part of these fights. He was just basically just a random grunt in Warcraft 2, you could argue. And he was basically made High Overlord in World of Warcraft. And for years, people have always screamed, make Sofang the War Chief. Sofang needs to be War Chief, not Thrall. And then Sofang needs to be War Chief, not Garrosh. Finally, the time for Sofang to potentially take the moniker of War Chief, the thing that people have wanted for years, has come. And guess what? Sylvanas, who, let me remind you, is an archer who is trained in long-range combat and has very little experience in close quarters combat, although for some reason World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King retcons this by giving her twin knives, which apparently she's a rogue now. Somehow. Like, now she's a rogue and an archer. Well, guess what? She's no longer just an archer. She's no longer just a rogue. But she's also, I don't know, a warlock or a necromancer. Like, she's basically a magician now. So, she is 3 classes now. Because in this Mock Gorah duel, during the fight, she pulls out these twin blades and, like, Sofang attacks her, but she basically cuts into Sofang's chest almost immediately. Then, after Sofang is knocked out, he gets back up and begins to retaliate, and the moment that he does, Sylvanas says the most stupidest thing she could ever say. She says, the Horde is nothing. Let me remind you that she is the leader of the Horde, and she was made leader of the Horde by the Horde. The Horde saved her from Varmathras and rescued her nation from the Legion. She owes the Horde quite a lot, only to tell the freaking entire Horde who is there watching that the Horde is nothing. Why aren't the Horde dogpiling on Sylvanas right now? I have no idea, but In any case, she basically performs this black magic, which murders Saurfang outright, just like how Gul'dan used the black magic on Jiraitan. She just pulls that out of her ass, and then she just teleports away. Really? She just teleports away like a pussy. And now you know, people, why Sylvanas Windrunner is the worst character in video game history. Do I really need to say any more? I mean, she is up her own ass. She's arrogant. She's unlikable. She's got tons of plot armor because every time that anyone has the opportunity to get shut of her, like, she always wins and always comes out on top no matter what. It's like Blizzard absolutely adore this character. They fucking love Sylvanas. And she's got so many fanboys who ogle over her because she's got huge breasts or something that they can't bear to kill Sylvanas off because, you know, it's like, oh no, my fan service is at risk. Like, my fan service will be taken away from me because, you know, we can't kill off the fan service character of the Horde. Oh no, we can't do that. I mean, that's the reason why she's still around, I think, because why else would she be given this much plot armor? Why else would she be made super powerful and, like, unbeatable by anybody? Like, it's just ridiculous, and I've always hated her. I've hated her ever since Warcraft 3, and when she was an absolute bitch to Arthas, and when she was responsible for the death of Balnazar and Deathrok, and later on Varamathras. Like, those were my three favourite characters in Warcraft 3, aside from Kil'jaeden. And Sylvanas is responsible for their deaths, so of course I'm going to take that personally as a fan of the Dreadlords. But what she does after that is even worse. It makes her the most unlikable bitch in video game history. Like, seriously, surely you guys can agree with me on this after hearing this. And if you're a fan of the Warcraft series, even World of Warcraft, surely you can agree that Sylvanas has to die. She has to go. She has to be killed off. Kill her off, Blizzard. Kill this bitch off and erase her existence from the fucking series. Just like you did with all the fucking raid bosses in the series, like Kil'jaeden and even Sargeras that you erased from the lore. Why can't you erase this bitch from the lore? Why is she so special? Because she has a pair of tits? Is that the reason why she's so special? I think it is. I think that's the reason why Blizzard can't bear to get shun of her, because they know that her fans worship the ground she walks on because she has breasts. That's the reason why she is the leader of the Horde right now, isn't it? Yeah, that's the reason why she beat Saurfang, isn't it? We all know. We all fucking know. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this fucking character. Because I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this character, but I don't want to bore you guys any more than I already have. Like I say, this was all being off the cuff. It's a pretty shit video. Sorry guys, but I had to get this off my chest. You guys that have watched me for quite a while should probably already know that I hate Sylvanas, but this really ticks me off. This really ticks me off. And I don't even play World of Warcraft anymore. Like, I'm so ashamed to be a Warcraft fan right now. I am so ashamed to have even liked the Warcraft series, because this is what it's become. It's become Sylvanas Windrunner, the game. That's what it's basically become now. She is like the unstoppable goddess that no one can ever defeat. The ultimate Mary Sue. That's what Sylvanas is. And now that Ronin's out of the way, she pretty much has taken his moniker of Mary Sue. Because he was a fucking Mary Sue at the time, because he was Mitchidnak's special snowflake, and he was killed off by Christy Golden, which I find amusing. But she's still alive. She's still, well, technically not alive, she's undead, but she's still existing in this universe. Kill her! Kill Sylvanas Windrunner! That is my rant, guys. And I'll see you next time.
Be gone,